Good evening. I'm Mayor Jeff Wenberg, and we're here to discuss a very important issue that Rutlanders are going to be deciding on town meeting day. That issue is the future of the bond issue, which we're calling the Municipal Facilities Improvement Bond. Last year, voters faced and narrowly rejected a bond issue which would have provided a new facility for the police department adjacent to the existing fire station and would have undertaken substantial renovations to City Hall. The bond issue this year would do all of those things. There have been some changes from last year's plans, but it would also incorporate some needed improvements to the existing fire station as well. I've got a wonderful panel here that will help discuss the reasons for and the specifics of this proposal. And I want to start right off by reminding everyone here that on January 19th at 7 p.m., there'll be an opportunity for you, the voters and the taxpayers of the City of Rutland, to call in on this channel, Channel 15. There'll be a live call-in show so that you'll have your specific questions answered, especially if we don't either answer them or don't fully answer them in the limited time that we have here tonight. So if I could start right over here on my left, I'd introduce the panel. All the way to my left is Captain Gary Gregorio of the Rutland City Fire Department. Welcome, Captain.
Thank you.
And next to him is Chief Bob Holmes of the Rutland City Police Department.
Thank you, Mayor.
Mary Goodwin is immediately to my left. She's a member of the Rutland City Police Commission.
Thanks, Jeff.
To my right is Rosemary Finley, the Rutland City Clerk.
Thank you.
Chris Louris is a member of the Rutland City Board of Aldermen and
Jeff.
was a member of the committee which over the summer put together the specifics of this proposal that you'll be deciding on town meeting day. And next to Chris is Alvin Fiegel, the architect for the project. We are going to talk about the dollars, we're going to talk about the need for the project, but first we thought it would be helpful if we could take a look through television, which is the very best way to do it, especially if you can't attend one of the open houses that are going to be coming up on the 21st, 22nd, and 28th of February and on the 1st of March. These open houses at City Hall and at the fire station will be open from noon to 3. And we would encourage as many people as possible to come and take a look at the facilities themselves, ask questions, and get as many answers as you can directly. But if you can't do that, or if you don't have the opportunity for one reason or another, we're going to give you a brief, about 11-minute tour right now by videotape. The various sections of the tour will be narrated or described by City Clerk Rosemary Finley for the City Hall sections. The council chambers are going to be shown, and Alderman Louris will be doing that. Anybody can jump in, but I guess I'll offer to do some of the commentaries on some of the exterior information and shots that we'll be showing of City Hall. And then Captain Gregorio will describe some of the things you'll be seeing up at the fire department, and Chief Holmes will be walking you through the police department to close it up. So please stay tuned, take a look at these videos and listen to the commentaries, and when we come back we'll get into the specifics of how we propose to fix these facilities with your support.
This is the city clerk's back vault, which has the vital records of birth, death, marriages. Our election machines are stored back there when not in use. This is a land record room, which is the second room in the vault. And these are the books of deeds and mortgages. This is also a working vault where lawyers, surveyors, realtors come to work at the various tables and stations to research the records. This is our way back storage room where our election machines, the large blue boxes, which are the ballot boxes that hold the machines on election day, are stored. And this is moving out. This is still in the storage room, which is slightly cluttered. In another week, those blue boxes will all be out in the larger room, which is here. The purchasing department is back behind that folding wall. It's a room that has no windows and no ventilation. This is the outer office where the 3 assistant clerks and myself work, and the public comes into the counter where you get your dog license, apply for your marriage license, pick up a copy of your child's birth certificate. This is the city treasurer's office, which consists of 2 rooms and a vault. This is their vault.
And the clerk and the treasurer's office will be accessible from both Washington Street and Strong's Avenue upon completion of the renovations. And obviously here we have the city chambers where the aldermen meet with its infamous ceiling tiles, which are still waiting to collect the first victim. The city chambers is in pretty good state of disrepair. Several leaks above the ceiling are obvious, as well as some damage due to water coming in around the windows and again through the ceilings due to the disrepair of the roof. And again, some more shots of the water damage of the aldermanic chambers there.
Some of these are some of the working offices on the second floor of City Hall where we've had roof leaks. And indeed, some of the gaps in the metal cornice, which is around the edge of the roof on the outside of City Hall, you can see as a hole there, which is a result of water leaking through the roof and then attacking the metal from up above. The cornice is a metal cornice, and it's in desperate need of paint, but it needs to be repaired as well as painted. Part of the bond issue would be to remove, essentially demolish, 2 one-story garage bays that are on the immediate south end of City Hall that no longer serve a function for us. And again, some more detail of the exterior, which has been in need of paint for really quite some time. The main entrance to City Hall, which only leads to the second floor and the police station, but does not lead to our highest traffic areas, which are the treasurer's office and the clerk's office. Right now, you have to travel all the way around the building to go from one part of the interior of the building to another. And of course, the front steps would be reset and properly sealed up. Some other basic masonry kind of repairs that are necessary. This building is a wonderful old building, and structurally it's in very good shape, but it's in need of continuous attention and deserves to be restored and properly treated. What we can't show you here are things like the wiring system. That needs to be replaced. The boiler down in the basement that heats the main portion of City Hall is ancient and requires, it's an old coal boiler that has been renovated or rehabilitated to burn oil, but is very inefficient and it should be replaced. It would save us money for fuel. In addition to that, the windows, this is a shot of an outside of a window, but the windows are quite old, and even the storm windows are quite old, and they really do need to be replaced.
This is the main apparatus floor of the fire station. This particular piece of floor is right under engine 4, and you can see it is shifting with the weight of the engine. It actually sinks below level, floor level. These are structural cracks in the apparatus floor that have become worse over the past few years. These cracks are not only in the apparatus floor, but as you can see now, we're going up the wall, the south wall of the apparatus floor, where you can see structural cracks throughout the walls themselves. I think in this, yes, there's another shot of the apparatus floor on the west wall, and these structural cracks are really throughout the entire fire department on all levels and in the garage. This mainly is from 30 years of service of the building being there.
This is a shot of the locker room, which is a co-educational locker room in the police department, since we can only afford one small locker room, and oftentimes at shift change there'll be 8 to 14 officers that have to go in there and dress and what have you, and they have to keep their extra uniforms and supplies in their lockers, which are really the old-fashioned lockers. Are not really large enough for them, and we don't have enough lockers, frankly, to go around. So some of our officers have to share with other officers in the locker room. Of course, the women have to go in at a separate time as the men, which is a real inconvenience, and we have no shower facilities, and oftentimes through the course of a particular watch, they can get bloody and dirty and greasy from crawling in cars. This is a shot of our Special Services Sergeant's office, which there is only room in there for him to sit there and for the cameraman to operate the camera. You can't get more than about one person in there unless you do stand. I guess you can get 2 people if you stand. But he has in charge of all property, not evidence, but property, as well as parking and dog violations and alarms and what have you. He has this very small office. This is going downstairs directly below the police department where we have to store our records. We only have enough room in our records section to store 3 years of records, and we have calls every day for records that date back 5 and 10 years, and our records clerks have to go downstairs to this hallway, which is dangerous to begin with, down to this records room, and it's damp down there, and it's very difficult to maintain these records in good shape. In just a minute, we'll go around the corner and show you where the actual records are. But it's just getting down there is a pretty good hassle and a dangerous trip, frankly. This is the records room itself. Both of our records clerks are female, and they have to come down here and lift these boxes off and work at that table. And sometimes it'll be as much as a half-inch of water on the floor when they're trying to do this. This is the other storage we have for both records and extra equipment, and there isn't enough room in this one either. It's an old jail cell that was underneath the building that we have to rent off-site storage for most of our property and evidence. We simply can't maintain evidence down below anymore. It's just too dangerous. This is our main squad room, looking at the one whole cell that we have there, the only place that we have to hold a prisoner who may be extremely rowdy. It's not much bigger than a phone booth, which is dangerous for the prisoner as well as for the officers. And it's right off our only squad room, which is used for the officers to write reports, to interview people who come in to make complaints or interview suspects, and eat their lunch there. They do their reports there, and it's a very small room, as you can see. And sometimes the public has to come in and be exposed to prisoners and things that they really should not be exposed to, including juveniles. We have to take them into separate private offices, sometimes even my own office, just so we can interview them, because there just isn't room in that facility. This is just the back of what used to be the communication section, but it's where all of our computer equipment is put together, and it's just some of the exposed wires there. And this is the sergeant's office, which is shared actually by 4 different sergeants. They're not all at the same time, but there's very little privacy and very little room to work, and it's immediately adjacent to the squad room where all of the activity is going on. We don't have enough space for officers, either their mailboxes or for them to keep any of their files, reports, and they keep them in that mailbox that you just saw. This door goes into the Criminal Investigation Crime Lab. The crime lab officer is not only responsible for doing the crime analysis on the evidence, but also for the evidence itself. We can't show you the evidence room because it is secure, but it's extremely small, and that's why we have to rent off-site storage for that. But you can see the working evidence that is around the counters now, and there's hardly room enough there to work and do the various experiments that they have to do on the evidence. And we frankly can't use the equipment that we do have in the crime lab or in this office simply because there isn't room anymore, and we send all of our photos and photo work outside now. This is the old dark room. And most of that, the things you see sitting on the counters, it looks very cluttered, are separate case evidence on each one of them, and they separate until they can be processed. this brings us back to the artist rendering of how the police extension on the public safety building would look adjacent to the fire station.
Well, we've just had a very brief tour of what the problem is, if you will. And the thing that perhaps we should emphasize here is that this is a municipal facilities bond issue. Its purpose is not to simply provide for, not that it's that simple, but to solely, perhaps is a better word, provide for the needs of the police department, but to recognize that if we are going to properly provide for the police department with a new facility adjacent to the existing fire station, that the old space that they have occupied in City Hall for quite a number of years is going to be rehabilitated so that it can now be put to new use. The vaults obviously are in need of substantial expansion, and there's other space needs in the remaining offices and uses of City Hall that could desperately take advantage of that. So we're essentially solving two problems in City Hall, but the second problem costs a substantial amount of money as well. And that problem in and of itself creates another challenge or another opportunity, depending on how you look at it, and that is meeting the code requirements. Any significant renovation of City Hall, whether it be just to refit one office or an entire floor for use by new offices or for new uses, will require some substantial renovations for code, access, fire code, those kinds of things in City Hall. And then finally, and unlike the bond issue which the voters saw a year ago, we've also identified the needs in the fire department, which that building is getting older now too, and you've seen some of those. To go over how the new construction, whether it be the renovations of the City Hall, the repairs at the fire station, or the new construction of the police facility would solve these problems, I'd like to now turn it over to Alvin Fiegel, the architect who has come up with what I think is a superb plan for the city.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to briefly take you through the drawings that we prepared for all of these changes to the various facilities that the mayor has mentioned and also that you've seen in the tape. As you can see, there's a lot to be done with these bond monies. I'd like to start with the first drawing showing the site of the new police wing addition on the fire department, the new public safety building. To orient you on this plan, this is South Main Street, north is up on the sheet, and this is Center Street. This building right over in this corner is the existing fire station, and over at the corner of Nickwacket Street you have the Historical Society building, the old Nickwacket Fire Station. The police station is actually a wing on the western side of the fire station. It will abut the fire station, and it will be about 110 feet long by 65 feet wide. The site will be used very intensively. We've been able to get parking on city property for 34 employee cars. We've only had to take one very small piece of property to accomplish using the site this intensively. Right over in this corner, there's 1.5 Nickwacket Street, a piece of property about 30 by 65, which would have to be acquired, but this is the only acquisition. The police station itself sits on a piece of land that slopes gently down to the west, and because of that slope, we were able to use what might otherwise be the basement of the building for police cruisers. Again, being able to use the site more intensively. In addition to use by police cruisers, this lower level would accommodate a sally port, which is a secure way of receiving prisoners, people in custody, to allow them to be introduced into the building and away from the public, a separate means of entering the building. The building itself would be a two-level structure abutting the fire station, and each of these floors would actually be more than adequate for the police department. We began this study by examining the current area that the police department occupies at City Hall, which is about 3,100 square feet. We found that they needed in excess of 10,000 square feet to function properly, and this plan allows them that space to function properly. In addition, one of the advantages of having the new police wing adjacent to the fire department is to allow an overlap of personnel use. Upstairs, you might have a secretary that could serve parts of the fire department administrative responsibilities as well as police department responsibilities. It also offers the option of using some of the new facilities for many purposes. A training room located on the second floor in this location could be used both by the police as well as the fire department, and it could serve as kind of a nerve center for emergency management in the case of citywide or municipal emergencies. The building itself would be a brick building compatible with its neighbors, the fire station, which is brick, and the Nickwacket Fire Station. We tried to show roofs that are compatible with adjacent roofs and roof pitches which mirror the roof pitches of the adjacent buildings. It's a large building, but we think it would fit comfortably in amongst its neighbors. Part of this bond issue also involves the repairs to the fire station mentioned by Captain Gregorio. We're aware of all of these. They involve repairs to the hose tower, new heating and ventilating systems, and other code issues at the fire station. City Hall is the other major part of this bond issue. At City Hall, when the police move out, a good part of the first floor of City Hall is then available to satisfy the needs of the Treasurer's office and the City Clerk's office, both of which are in need of expansion. In order to do that, however, as has been pointed out, the two parts of the first floor of City Hall have to be connected. We're proposing a corridor running through the middle of the first floor of City Hall, connecting the Strongs Avenue entrance and the Washington Street entrance, and allowing anyone entering either of these entrances to find everything available on the first floor of City Hall. It's going to be a much more user-friendly building, much less confusing to use. You're going to be able to enter and find where you have to go. We have a number of things shown on the plan. This is a new exit stair required by the code. This is the vault that Rosemary Finley had been explaining the necessity for before. It's a new fireproof vault. In addition to what you see on the plans, there are also code-related items, as the mayor has explained. A new sprinkler system is proposed to protect City Hall. There are energy efficiency measures. A new heating and ventilating system is going to be supplied. Electrical wiring will be upgraded. Windows will be fixed and repaired or replaced. And in general, certain parts of City Hall which are in terrible need of repairs and sprucing up, that will be accomplished. The roof will be repaired, the slate roof, the cornice, the exterior will be painted, the front steps will be reset, and the aldermanic chambers will receive much needed repair. I think that's a brief summary, and only a brief summary of what this bond issue intends to accomplish.
Thank you. We're going to be tossing around a few questions in a minute, but probably the question that is foremost right now is how much is all of this going to cost and how is that money going to be spent? So I'd like to offer, at the risk of looking like Ross Perot, this. This shows how $4.1 million would be used to solve all of these problems. And this little pie chart, I think, describes it reasonably well. A little over $2.5 million for the police facility that has just been described. One of the things that many people in Rutland have been asking is, well, how is it possible for you to spend $4.1 million on a police station? Well, I suppose it's possible, but we're not proposing to do that. That is not at all the case. It's $2.5 million for that 10,000 square foot police facility. The balance of the bond goes for the remaining things that we've described. The fire station improvements are a little less than $250,000, $223,000. And then City Hall renovations are about a little less than $1.3 million. And again, many of those renovations most of the money that is going for those renovations are going for things, very, very big ticket items, like new wiring, new heating systems, and so forth, and the access code issues. And then there's a small amount here that shows other of about $57,000. That represents the acquisition of land and the cost of getting permits to get these various projects underway and under construction. All of this together, the largest piece being the new police facility, but by no means the entire thing, represents what we hope to accomplish with your support with $4.1 million in the bond issue. Okay. Now, one of the questions I think would be probably foremost in many folks' mind is, we saw a proposal of about the same amount of money a year ago. How is this proposal different from the bond issue which was presented to the voters a year ago in March? And who wants to take that one? Alvin, do you have a summary of the changes?
Let me explain a couple of the changes. First, in relation to the fire station and the public safety building. Back in 1996, we figured that we would have to approach the neighbors and ask them for participation in the project, to share their land for parking, to purchase easements or to purchase parts of property to satisfy all of the parking needs of the employees of the joint departments. By reworking the parking plan, we were able to accomplish all of the employee parking on city property with the exception of that one property acquisition I mentioned. In addition, we've started in 1997 making sure that the neighbors were aware of what we were doing, that their perspectives and wishes and the impacts on them were minimized insofar as possible. We've been dealing with the Historical Society, listening to their needs, and have responded by modifying the plan somewhat to accommodate the Historical Society. This plan is a little bit different in that it looks at the fire station, at the problems brought out at the fire station, and addresses them. I mean, there are monies in this bond issue to take care of these problems at the fire station. In addition, it looks seriously at City Hall, the needs at City Hall, and it has monies allotted, specific monies allotted to take care of those needs.
Thanks, sir. I'd like to ask Chris, perhaps, he served on the committee that went through this. What was the committee's general reaction, and what did you do through the committee process to modify the proposal, the cuts that were made to bring us down to the $4.1 million package that the voters will see?
Well, a good portion of it, as Alvin explained, was through the entire summer we met with all the neighbors and any city employees also. We met with the fire union, we met with the police union. The fire union was instrumental in providing us with both code and structural information on the fire station itself. Additionally, the building inspector, Jimmy Simons, was brought in for City Hall, as was Franny Robillard from the fire department, to determine what specific code issues we needed to address and construction issues as well at the City Hall. Consequently, what we came up with, instead of grasping at straws as we did last year in a meeting just prior to the bond going to vote, we came with some very specific outlined costs associated with the new bond rather than guesses. And that's where the savings came in, is really getting down and dirty with what specifically we were looking at for the bond issue and where to cut the specific costs. So we did it in land acquisition, easements, and cutting some of the fluff, if you will, out of the initial proposal for such as central air conditioning for City Hall. That was taken out. And any other things you can think of, Alvin, that were real specific? I'm drawing a little bit of a blank right now on those.
It was about $300,000.
Yes, it was, we had one meeting where it was just over $200,000 we came up with. In the second meeting, we scrubbed another $85,000 off. So we essentially took off roughly 8% from the first figure we had after our meetings were complete in the summer.
Oh, that's great. I'd like to maybe ask Mary, if I could here. You're a member of the Police Commission, and you're an unpaid volunteer citizen in the community, and served on the Police Commission, I think, since its founding. One of the
I think it's almost 10 years.
charter member here. So you have a lot of experience in terms of addressing and dealing with the specific needs and challenges facing the police department, but you don't draw a paycheck and you don't actually work there day to day. So from your perspective, what can you offer as to, the reasons why the Police Commission is so heavily supportive of the changes for the police department?
Well, I think I've been with the commission long enough now to realize the conditions that they're working under. It's very, very cramped. Security is not what it should be, and now that the dispatch has moved up to the fire station, running things from 2 buildings has made things even more complicated. And I'm here basically to say that the Police Commission is unanimously behind this project, and really hope that it goes.
We certainly hope so, too. I'd like to also maybe ask Captain Gregorio, a year ago when that bond issue, the previous one, was presented to the voters, the $223,000 improvements in the fire station were not included. If you could comment on the importance of getting those projects done at the same time, maybe from your perspective as someone who's really worked your career in the building.
Yes, sir. I think that it's not only needed, but very appropriate. A lot of our problems that we have at our facility have gone from a nuisance mode right now to an outright dangerous mode, not only for our occupants, our firefighters, but for the general public, involving areas such as structural problems, the air handling system, the roofs, the furnace, and so forth and so on. We have to remember that we enforce building code policies within the city, and right now I think it's appropriate that all of the city buildings be brought up to building code. You have to remember that building codes were designed to protect people, to keep them safe in their workplace and in their homes. And to not have a building that is up to code is downright dangerous. The other thing I can relate to is the average homeowner. If you buy a home, 30 years later, you're going to have to put some money into it. That's just the way it is. And we've reached the 30-year mark now, and money is going to have to be put into our facility in order for us to provide the most efficient service to the taxpayer.
That's a very good point. One of the things, maybe Rosemary, one of the things that I find frustrating, because this is a very big project with a lot of pieces, some of which are very big as well, but there are some parts of this project, specifically in City Hall, that even if the police department were to never leave, they'd still have to be done.
Right, the city clerk's office and the city treasurer's office have been expanding inwardly for years. What used to be a big conference room in my back room is now full. Our records that are required to be maintained forever by the state are rapidly filling our vaults. We probably have 5 years room left for land records. There is new legislation proposed this year that is going to increase the volume of the type of land records that we have to keep greatly, maybe even double it. We fill approximately 1 book a month, and you saw the pictures of the vault. There aren't that many slots left.
Perhaps, Alvin, some of those other issues in City Hall, whether they be code or whatever other issues, they're not going to go away even if the police facility didn't need to be addressed. What are some of those? What are the big ones?
The roof leaks. City Hall has a slate roof. The slate roof is in need of something on the order of $12,000 worth of repair. If you remember the mayor pointing to one part of the building's cornice on the tape that you saw, pointing to a hole in the cornice, this is because the slate roof leaks. There are problems in the attic in consequence as a result of this roof leak. There are ceiling tiles falling down in the aldermanic chambers. Whether or not the bond issue passes, whether or not the police move, these leaks won't stop without a significant roof repair. Code issues at City Hall are the same. City Hall was built around the turn of the century. It's going to be almost 100 years old in a couple of years. It predates any building code, and modern building codes are a real problem at City Hall. Bringing the building into code compliance, which is a real concern by the local Department of Labor and Industry, is also going to cost money, and whether or not the bond issue passes, whether or not the police move, that has to be addressed.
Thank you. Chief, one of the questions that I think I've heard many times, and I know that the people of the city of Rutland are going to have to be satisfied with the answer before they're going to be comfortable with at least the new police facility portion of this, is why not another building? Why not Lincoln School? Now, we just learned that Lincoln School is being sold by the school department. They have jurisdiction to another school, which I think the neighbors are quite pleased with. But there are other buildings. Why not another building, renovate in another older existing building in the community? From a facilities or police management standpoint, why not?
Well, it comes down to two things, really. First of all, economics. Almost any old building that we would be able to purchase or acquire would require very significant renovations to make it an efficient police department. And bringing those buildings up to code, many of which are not, and they wouldn't satisfy, anything that we've looked at have not been able to satisfy all the needs that we have within the police department, everything from parking to just simply the space that we need. There was, I mentioned, a couple of buildings that were available at 3,000 and 6,000 square feet. And as Al said, we need in excess of 10,000 square feet, so we'd be adding on to almost any building that was there, and they're taking for more property. And it would distort the neighborhoods that now exist in terms of the historical, beautiful buildings that we have, when they were talking about homes. Now, when we look at the schools, Mr. Fiegel and I looked 3 years ago, frankly, when we realized the problem for other buildings that we could use within the police department. The cost of renovations to make those buildings into something that we could use as an efficient police department was in excess of this cost of building in a new building. And of course, it prohibits the use other uses. If we convert it to a police department, it's still off the tax rolls, but nobody else can really use it. And the placement, the location is very important, I think, particularly in Rutland, that the police department be located someplace in the business district. This way, we stay within the business district and in a central location within the city, where we're more accessible to all the walk-in traffic that we have, the pedestrians that come there, as well as other people. And there are very few places within the business district where we could really build a building. So it's economics, it's location, and the aesthetics to different neighborhoods if we were trying to put a police department in, say, an old house that was in a residential neighborhood.
One of the things that the aldermen were particularly supportive of over the last year, and I certainly agreed, was the concept that has already taken place of combining the police and fire dispatch operations up at the fire department. Part of that was driven by the E911 standards, but we saw the potential for getting some efficiencies in the use of manpower by having the communications in one place shared by police and fire. I know, Captain, we're looking forward to the day when every single firefighter will be able to respond to the call because your coverage of the building will be taken care of by the police department. And conceivably, the police department could also use, and as I understand it already has on an informal basis, some of the manpower from the fire department when you guys are strapped, if you're all working from the same shop. If the police department were located somewhere else, but your communications continued to operate out of the fire department, which is the long-term plan regardless, would that affect your ability to operate efficiently?
Yes, and we've already seen that. Since the communications has moved to the fire department, it's caused some real problems within City Hall because the communications now, when somebody walks into the city hall, they don't get to see a person. They talk on the telephone to dispatch in another location. And we have to dispatch a car back there, or a police officer back there, to take care of their problem. But this building was designed with that in mind, both so that the dispatcher would serve as a building receptionist for all of the new building, and there would be one secretary that could serve investigations, fire department, and the police administration. So, in effect, this building would probably reduce the number of people that would be required in the future by at least 2 people. Now, the 2 salaries are significant because with the benefits and what have you, we're talking probably $150,000. No, I'm sorry, probably talking $80,000 a year forever for those other positions. And so that's a real savings when you look at the design of this building and the location being with the fire department, as well as emergency management.
Right, that's another good point. One of the reasons I've supported this proposal, and I'll speak for myself, but I feel very, very strongly about it, is that when you look at the economics from a standpoint of as a taxpayer or anybody, quite frankly, who relies upon the services which the city provides, we have to be particularly concerned about consuming our tax base, anybody consuming our tax base. The city relies almost exclusively for the general services that we provide on property taxes. We don't have a local sales tax. We don't have those local option taxes that would relieve the property tax from carrying that burden. As a result, any property that is currently taxable, or even for that matter potentially taxable in the future, and could be put in private sector productive job creation, economy supporting use, is a precious, precious commodity. One of the proposals I know that a number of people, and in fact we investigated it somewhat significantly about 2 years ago, within the last 2 years, was the now vacant Green Mountain Bank building on the corner of West Street and Whale Street in downtown Rutland. The location certainly meets many of the circumstances that we want to achieve, but that building, right now, vacant, generates $31,000 a year in property tax revenues for the city. Just a handful of years ago, when that building was occupied and generating full taxable value as a occupied operating building, as a bank, it was listed for twice what it is on the grand list today. That's over $1 million more than it is today. In addition to that, because it was occupied and operating, it had also machinery and equipment, computers and so forth in there for another $800,000 of tax base that was in that building. There's no question that that building is not going to lie fallow forever. It is a valuable location, it's a valuable commercial location, and with 600 parking spaces plugged into the back door, there's no question that it is going to once again be occupied, perhaps even expanded in the future. It would be, I think, a terrible shame to forego the opportunity for substantial tax revenues, even over a life of a 20-year bond, and instead take our proposal and do it to the maximum degree possible on lands and with properties which the city already owns. For example, if you take that 20-year proposal, 20-year bond, just look at a 20-year analysis, that's $620,000 in lost property tax revenues at the current assessment. That's well over $1 million, $1.2 million at a reasonable assessment that we would see just another year or two down the road when the building is sold and reoccupied and retenanted and retrofitted and upgraded by a private sector tax-paying entity. You have to factor the lost property tax revenues in when you consider those things. Another issue that we came up with, and Mr. Fiegel was helpful in this too, was the cost of renovating that, even if we were to use it for an entire replacement of all of City Hall. That, plus the purchase price, plus the lost opportunity of tax revenues for a valuable piece of commercial property in the future, made that an excessively expensive proposal, and one that makes this proposal, we think, the best proposal and the best recommendation that we, as your elected officials, can make to the voters for your consideration. I want to ask anybody here if there's anything that they'd like to add to this discussion. I'm going to mention again the upcoming dates and things for people, but Is there anything we've missed?
Just, Jeff, I believe potentially what this could cost the taxpayers, the bond issue. I believe the city treasurer worked out an approximate $60 per year tax increase to a property owner who has standard $100,000 house in the city.
And that would be, of course, for the first year.
Correct.
And that would decline gradually over the life
Over the
of the
course
bond.
of the 20
So that'd be
years.
the worst case, first year, most expensive
Yes.
cost. And then, of course, after 20 years, it's paid off.
Correct.
Well, that's a very important point. I'm glad we didn't miss that. Let me mention once again, and I think I may have given you the wrong date at the beginning, the call-in program on Channel 15, where you'll be able to ask your questions to some of the members of this panel and perhaps some other people who'll be available, is going to start at 7 o'clock on Channel 15 on February 19th, not January 19th, which is a bit past us now. And if you have any questions that you'd like to have answered or explored further, that will be your best opportunity. In addition, there will be open houses. We invite all of the public to come in on February 21st, February 22nd, February 28th, and March 1st. The hours on all of those dates are between noon and 3 p.m., and the open house will, of course, be City Hall and the Fire Department. We'd hope that you'd have the time and take the opportunity to take a look at both buildings, get the tour, and we'll have some handouts for people so that you can look at how this might affect you directly in your taxes and help you make up your mind for the March town meeting vote on the City of Rutland's Municipal Facilities Improvement Bond. I want to thank everybody here on our panel and encourage the voters to get out and get informed about the Municipal Facilities Improvement Bond. It will be on the ballot on March town meeting day. The bond to renovate City Hall, to make improvements at the fire station, and to build a new police facility. Please get out and vote on March town meeting day. Thank you.